Living in Maple Grove Estates had been mostly peaceful for the 3 years since I'd moved in. Sure, our homeowners association could be a bit particular about things like lawn maintenance and holiday decorations, but I'd never had any real issues. Until Patricia Wellington decided to run for HOA president. I should have seen the warning signs when she started campaigning door-to-door 6 months ago, armed with a binder full of community improvement proposals and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Patricia was the epitome of what you'd expect from an HOA Karen. Perfectly coiffed blonde hair, designer athleisure wear, and an air of superiority that could probably be detected from space. "We need to restore Maple Grove to its former glory," she'd declared at the community meeting where she announced her candidacy. "Some residents have been allowing standards to slip, and that ends now." The way her gaze lingered on my house, with its newly installed solar panels, told me exactly who she considered to be part of the problem. The solar panels had been a significant investment, but they were already paying off in reduced energy bills and environmental impact. I'd gotten all the proper permits and HOA approvals before installation, so I wasn't particularly worried when Patricia won the election by promising to modernize our community guidelines. That changed the morning I found a violation notice taped to my front door. "Dear resident," the letter began, its official letterhead somehow making the passive-aggressive tone even worse. "It has come to our attention that your unauthorized solar installation violates our new architectural guidelines. You have 72 hours to remove these unsightly additions or face daily fines." I tried calling the HOA office immediately, but Patricia's new assistant informed me that the president was too busy to discuss individual violations. That's how I found myself standing at Patricia's pristine white door at 7 p.m. that evening, armed with my approval documentation and what remained of my patience. "Oh, it's you," Patricia said when she opened the door, her expression suggesting she'd just smelled something unpleasant. "I suppose you're here about the violation notice?" "Yes, Patricia. I have all the documentation showing these panels were properly approved before installation. They're completely legal and—" She cut me off with a wave of her manicured hand. "Those approvals were granted under the old board. Our new guidelines clearly state that visible solar installations detract from community aesthetics. Surely you understand we need to maintain our property values." "The panels are staying," I stated firmly. "They were legally approved and you can't retroactively deny permission. If you persist with these fines, I'll have no choice but to challenge them legally." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Well, if that's your attitude, I suppose we'll have to handle this officially. Don't say I didn't try to be reasonable." She shut the door in my face, leaving me seething on her perfect portico. I spent the next few days documenting everything and consulting with a lawyer friend who specialized in property law. He confirmed what I already knew. Patricia's attempts to force removal of previously approved installations wouldn't hold up legally. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The first power outage happened on a Tuesday afternoon while I was working from home. At first I assumed it was just a random fluctuation, but when I went outside to check my electrical panel, I found something that made my blood boil. The lines connecting my solar system to the power grid had been deliberately cut. As I stood there staring at the cleanly severed cables, my neighbor Jeff came running over. "Hey, is your power out too? The whole street just went dark." That's when I realized something Patricia hadn't considered in her rush to handle things officially. My solar setup was connected to the neighborhood grid through a sophisticated net metering system. By cutting my lines, she hadn't just disabled my panels, she'd created a surge that knocked out power to the entire block. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911, watching as more neighbors emerged from their homes, all wondering why their electricity had suddenly failed. As I waited for the police to arrive, I couldn't help but smile slightly. Patricia had just made a massive mistake, and the best part was, I had security cameras that had caught the whole thing. But this was just the beginning. What happened next would turn our quiet suburban community into a battleground of epic proportions, with Patricia's reign as HOA president hanging in the balance. And trust me, you'll want to hear about the moment she realized exactly how badly she'd miscalculated. The responding police officers weren't just concerned about vandalism, they were alarmed by the potential public safety implications. Officer Martinez spent a solid hour taking statements and photographs, paying particular attention to my security footage showing Patricia, in her designer yoga pants and tennis shoes, approaching my electrical panel with what appeared to be industrial wire cutter. "This is actually a pretty serious situation," Officer Martinez explained as he finished his report. "Tampering with electrical infrastructure isn't just vandalism, it's a public safety issue that could have caused fires or other hazards. Plus, since it affected multiple households, the charges could be significantly more severe." I watched as utility trucks began arriving, their flashing lights illuminating the growing crowd of neighbors gathered on the sidewalk. Patricia was notably absent from the community discussion, but I could see her silhouette pacing behind her living room curtains. The first battle had been fought, but the war was far from over, and Patricia had no idea what was coming next. Part 2 opened with a refreshing blast of air conditioning as I walked into the police station the next morning. I'd barely slept, spending most of the night helping neighbors document damaged electronics and gathering statements about the impact of Patricia's impulsive action. The detective assigned to the case, a no-nonsense woman named Detective Chin, was already waiting for me. "We've reviewed your security footage," she began, sliding a cup of coffee across her desk. "Along with statements from the utility company about the extent of the damage, Mrs. Wellington's actions didn't just affect your home. She created a cascade failure that impacted critical infrastructure for the entire subdivision." I nodded, pulling out my folder of documentation. "I've got statements from 23 neighbors so far. Mrs. Peterson across the street had to throw out everything in her refrigerator. The Jacobsons lost their entire fish tank when the pumps failed, and the Smiths' basement flooded because their sump pump stopped working." Detective Chen's eyebrows rose as she flipped through the papers. "This is very thorough. We're also concerned because there's a resident on your street who relies on powered medical equipment. Fortunately, their backup generator kicked in, but this could have been much worse." Just then, her phone buzzed. After a brief conversation, she looked up, with an expression that mixed professional restraint with obvious satisfaction. "Mrs. Wellington is being brought in for questioning now. Given the evidence and potential charges, her lawyer has advised her to cooperate fully." As if on cue, I heard Patricia's distinctive voice echoing down the hallway, significantly less commanding than usual. "This is ridiculous. I was simply enforcing HOA guidelines that person was clearly in violation, and—" "Mrs. Wellington," a male voice interrupted firmly, "I strongly advise you to stop talking until we're in the interview room." I couldn't help but smile slightly as I heard Patricia's heels clicking away, followed by the sound of a door closing. Detective Chin caught my expression and allowed herself a small smile as well. "I should warn you," she said, "this is far from over. Cases like this can get complicated, especially when HOA politics are involved. But I have to say, I've never seen someone so thoroughly document their own criminal activity before." She was right about things being far from over, but even I couldn't have predicted how the next few days would unfold. Because while Patricia was being questioned, her actions had set in motion a chain of events that would expose far more than just her vendetta against my solar panels. The power outage had forced many neighbors to miss work or lose valuable equipment, and they weren't happy. As news spread about the cause, people began digging into other recent HOA decisions. What they found would shock our entire community and lead to one of the most dramatic homeowners association meetings in Maple Grove history. But first, we had to deal with the immediate aftermath of Patricia's actions, including a revelation about her past that would leave everyone questioning how she'd ever been elected in the first place. Part 3 brought the kind of morning television news crews dream about: clear skies, perfect lighting, and a story too good to ignore. The local station had sent a reporter after hearing about an HOA president being arrested for vandalizing critical infrastructure, but they got so much more than they bargained for. "Sources tell us that Mrs. Wellington's actions may have violated federal law," the reporter announced, standing in front of my solar panels. Additionally, documents have emerged showing this isn't the first time she's been involved in homeowners association controversy. Those documents had been quite a find. It turned out Patricia had been forced to resign from another HOA board 3 years ago after attempting to implement similarly aggressive policies. She'd conveniently left that detail off her campaign materials for our community. The emergency HOA meeting that evening was held in the community center's largest room, and it still wasn't big enough. Residents were packed in shoulder to shoulder, many holding printouts of their damage claims. Patricia sat at the front, her usually perfect hair slightly disheveled, her lawyer whispering urgently in her ear. "Before we begin," our HOA vice president announced, "I want to acknowledge the severity of recent events. The board has received dozens of complaints, and we're taking them very seriously." What followed was 3 hours of controlled chaos. Neighbors detailed thousands of dollars in damages. The resident with medical equipment spoke about their terror when the power failed. Environmental experts explained how Patricia's actions had not only been illegal, but had actually cost the community money by disrupting our solar contribution to the grid. Patricia's attempts to defend herself only made things worse. "I was just trying to maintain our community standards," she protested. "Those panels are an eyesore." "An eyesore that saved us money," Mr. Johnson, our resident accountant, interrupted. "I've reviewed the numbers. That solar setup helped reduce our community's overall utility costs. By damaging it, you actually decreased our property values." The final blow came when our HOA's insurance company representative took the floor. "Due to the intentional nature of Mrs. Wellington's actions, our policy won't cover the damages. She's personally liable for all repairs and resident claims." Patricia's face went from red to white as the implications sank in. Her lawyer was already gathering his papers, probably calculating how to minimize the damage to both her bank account and potential criminal charges. The vote to remove her from the board was unanimous. As she fled the meeting in tears, I couldn't help but think about her campaign promises to restore our community's glory. In a way, she had, just not how she'd intended. The aftermath brought unexpected positive changes. Our HOA adopted new guidelines promoting sustainable energy solutions. 3 other residents installed solar panels. The community even started a program to help senior residents maintain their properties, preventing future conflicts over maintenance issues. As for Patricia, she put her house on the market 2 weeks later. I heard she's moving to a neighborhood without an HOA, probably for the best. The last time I saw her, she was supervising the moving truck, carefully avoiding eye contact with anyone on the street. My solar panels are still here, working perfectly after being repaired. Sometimes, when the sun hits them just right, I swear, they shine a little brighter, as if they know they've won. And every time I get my reduced energy bill, I think about sending Patricia a copy. But I don't need to. Living well and sustainably is the best revenge.